Now is not the time to sell. In the grand scheme of things, we are still extremely early, and there are still a lot of gains to be had. And I do think selling now is a mistake. Now, for people that feel like they're over leveraged, and because these miners have gone up so much, it is understandable for some people to take some profits, find some other sectors to get into, especially if they want to keep their portfolio somewhat managed, keep it properly weighted. That is understandable. But for people trying to sell everything now, get back in on a dip, I think that's a mistake. And of course, people can get lucky, people can time it right, get out, get back in, get out again, get back in. I think there are a lot more gains to be had to just continue averaging in and continue buying. Now in this video, I'm going to talk about Bitcoin, I'm going to talk about Sphere 3D, and I'm going to talk about CleanSpark. And all three of these will continue higher, and these prices will be a pipe dream in 2024, 2025. And rather than flat out selling shares, one thing I would recommend, while I'm not your financial advisor, one thing I would say is selling covered calls is the way to go. And I'll show you guys more about that in just a second. But we're having a great day again in the crypto world. Things are hitting new yearly highs, and I do think the hype will continue. It's still extremely early. Now, if you guys got something useful out of this, make sure you like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, check out the links down below to some free stocks, and let's get started. And first off, Bitcoin. Bitcoin just hit yearly highs only a week or 2 weeks ago, and I do expect it to continue much higher. Looking at things short term, if we break this ascending channel, I have been keeping an eye on this. If we do break this, it's possible we come down to 40,000 again. Maybe we break that support level and come down to 38,000 or so. Worst case, we come down and test our long-term ascending support that we've basically been utilizing since the beginning of this year, since the end of last year. I find it very unlikely, but there is a possibility, very small possibility, that this gets down to 31,000 or so. I wouldn't hold my breath till then and wait to buy then. I would continue dollar cost averaging. And people all the time get screwed for this. Selling where they think the top is, waiting for a dip. It dips a little bit, they wait a little bit longer, and then it goes back, breaks the level that they sold at, and either they're having to chase it at new higher levels than when they sold, or they're just going to avoid it completely and look for something else. I believe in the end, continuing to build out your position is going to play out to be the better option, more gains than trying to time the market, get in, get out. And of course, if you know what you're doing, if you know when to sell, when the RSI is extremely overbought, if you're looking at things more short term, that's perfectly fine. But I think long term is the way to go. All Bitcoin really needs is a break into 45,000, and this momentum will likely continue all the way nearly to 48, 50,000. The chart is still very bullish. We're above a 50 and 200 ascending moving average, and I'm watching them for potential drawdown points. If we come down to the 50 MA, we'll be touching right around 38, 39,000, which I still think is possible, and it would be a great opportunity to add some Bitcoin. And in some cases, we can get a very overbought RSI. You might expect a drawdown. Bitcoin trades sideways, the RSI levels out, and then we go back to overbought. When you're seeing Bitcoin overbought like this, day in, day out, little pullbacks that really don't take much gains away, and then it goes on to create new highs, that means the momentum's there. People are looking at every opportunity to buy Bitcoin, and buyers step in when the RSI cools off almost every time lately. And if you're looking for a heavily oversold RSI, good luck. Last cycle, we hardly saw that at all. And besides our V-shaped recovery back in March of 2020, which was a black swan event, obviously, we didn't see an oversold RSI until we got to the summer of 2021. This is the equivalent of 2025 in this cycle. So I do think what we're going to see a lot of is more of an overbought RSI than oversold. Buyers are going to continue stepping in, barring any crazy unforeseen events. Maybe if the spot Bitcoin ETFs get denied, we see a pretty hard drawdown. But I do think we have the halving backing Bitcoin up. In only a few months, Bitcoin's incoming supply will be cut in half, while demand remains constant, if not higher. And this will bring a huge appreciation in price to Bitcoin, as well as a lot of the miners. Okay, now I want to talk about CleanSpark. It's been moving higher. We just created new highs. We've been creating new highs after new highs, just continuing to run. That momentum is there. Some of you that took advantage throughout 2022, throughout early 2023, are probably deep in the green. And I'm sure a lot of you are considering, when do I take profits? Do I sell a little bit, get back in lower? Things are definitely overbought on the chart. And when you see a mountain like this, typically we see a breakdown, we see a little pullback, a retracement. Of course, we still have our gap looming in the 7s. It's still possible we fill that. But I think one good strategy, rather than outright selling your shares, is to sell covered calls. And I have an example here. I have covered calls expiring in late January, only about a month from now. And these are at a $20 strike. So look at the chart. The circle here, CleanSpark has to essentially by the end of January, get to $20. It has to nearly double up from here after already doing over a 200% gain starting in November. The likelihood of CleanSpark doubling up once more in only a matter of a month, I think, is very unlikely. And I think these are some very safe covered calls. to collect a little bit of premium and not be forced to sell your shares. But of course, anything could happen. And think about this, if CleanSpark by January gets to $20, it would probably be insanely overbought on the chart. And taking some profits off your shares at 20 probably isn't the worst way to go. But my overall goal here is not for the shares to hit. And of course, if we get towards that 20 by then, I could always roll them up into 2250s, 25s, or you can buy to close the covered call. So there are ways to get out of it if you don't want to sell those shares after you sell a covered call. But I do think there's a way for some easy premium, especially when things get overbought on the chart, kind of like we are here. But the buying pressure is clearly here. We've been overbought for quite a while on CleanSpark, and the RSI tried to go towards neutral. However, the buyers stepped in immediately. You can see that Bitcoin and these Bitcoin miners have a lot of buying pressure, ready to buy those dips, and everyone on the forums, looking to sell is going to be looking to buy dips. Everyone looking to add to their portfolio after this huge run up is going to be looking to buy those dips. And dip buying will continue playing out to be the way to go as we work our way into the halving in 2024 and as we get into our crazy run year in 2025. CleanSpark's still looking great on the chart. We're above an ascending 250 MA. We recently saw our golden cross and it's extremely bullish. If you're trying to play it very patiently, look for that RSI to cool off a bit, potentially add in the 10s. Here's the thing, there's probably people that sold here right around 10 thinking that it was going to do what it did last time it ran back towards the summer when it went like from $4 all the way to $8 only to pull back all the way down under where it was in the first place. And of course it could play out to do a similar thing. Maybe we pull back, maybe we fill this gap, end up at 750. But that places you kind of in a rough position. You're sitting here looking for that dip to buy instead of just simply dollar cost averaging, building up your portfolio while selling covered calls against your position you already have, collecting easy premium that can either go into more shares or go into shares of another company. And I really do think selling here is a fatal mistake when you're really looking at the grand scheme of things. Sure, some people might be seeing 1130 right now and saying it's overbought, and on the RSI it is overbought. But 3 months from now, 6 months from now, if we're in the teens, people would have been happy to buy at 11. So just consider that, consider the big picture. I do think these miners have a lot more gains to be had, and we're still early, believe it or not. Now I want to talk about Sphere 3D. This thing has been going absolutely insane. It's like a 30% update today, and I do expect more to come. Be aware that we do have a gap we may fill right around $2. I think that would be a great point to start adding again. If not, I do think DCA is the way. The chart's starting to look better. We have an ascending 250 MA. However, we're still waiting on a golden cross, whereas a lot of other miners have already seen that golden cross. Sphere 3D, once again, is overbought on the chart. And of course, on a crazy update like today, you're going to see some profit taking probably at the end of the day. But I do think any small red days, any small pullbacks are buying opportunities. And I will be trying to build this out over time. Hopefully not adding on days like this where we're up 30%. I don't like chasing stocks, but I do know that Sphere 3D, in my opinion, is going to go much higher. And even after this little run up, these prices will still look good in the future. Now, if you're looking for something that hasn't run up as crazy as Sphere 3D or CleanSpark, I do think Iris Energy is still a great play to get into. It's not overbought on the chart like the others, and it's really pretty much been consolidating since the beginning of December. I think if we break $5, this could head lower, and if we get a break above 6 into the low 6s, I do think this can continue higher. We are getting very near a golden cross here. The moving averages are pointing up, and it's very likely we see a golden cross soon unless we sell off dramatically, and this golden cross would bring more bullish momentum. Iris Energy is expecting to eke out a record quarter. Last quarter they reported they saw about a $34 million revenue. They're expecting around a 35 million now. We'll see if they can see that revenue growth quarter over quarter. We're definitely going to see year over year revenue growth. About a year ago, they're pulling in 11 million in revenue. So they're roughly tripling that in a year. And I do think Iris Energy is a very interesting stock to get into. They're also focusing on AI as well. And they do have sites outside of the US. I think this is a good one for some exposure out of the US. They mine in Canada as well. And I do think it's overall a good thing to have multiple miners in your portfolio. And if you are planning on potentially swinging some, selling some, I think it's a good thing to not just have one position, but have multiple positions and at multiple price points across different portfolios. This gives you more wiggle room. This gives you more options. If you have different price points across the board that you bought at, maybe you have one portfolio with a position that you don't want to add much more because you like your cost basis. So you get into a position on a different brokerage. I do think it's a good strategy to have multiple positions in multiple stocks across the board on different brokerages. It gives you a little wiggle room. For example, if I really wanted to, I could sell my CleanSpark on webull, make a profit, whereas on my Vanguard I'm still actually negative on it, so I could be adding on that, getting my average lower on my Vanguard shares and potentially selling covered calls like I am on my webull shares. And if those covered calls do hit, I don't take a loss, whereas if on Vanguard I was to do covered calls, they might not even be at a profit. Overall, despite these recent run-ups, I think these miners are still great to get into. Just exercise caution. Know that a lot of them are overbought. We may see some pullbacks. Have some money ready, but at the same time, you know, don't be scared to DCA into these, because overall I do think over the next year, 2 years, these will be much higher in price, and selling now, like I said, is a mistake. But let me know what you guys think. What miners are you getting into right now? What do you see the best opportunities out there for the miners? And also let me know what cryptos you're looking at. I think now's a great time to start really getting into the altcoins. There are a lot of coins that have underperformed compared to others, and there are definitely opportunities out there. But let me know what you guys are doing. Are you selling shares? Are you selling covered calls? Are you simply DCAing, or are you buying every dip? Thanks as always for watching, guys, and I'll catch you next time.